So the last steps in finalizing our thesis. You feel like you are ready, you have written the thesis, but that's not the end. There are some things that you need to be taken care of so that everything goes smoothly at the very last stage. Now, even at the planning stage, one of the things you need to consider is the timing. We have these thesis committee meetings. So what happens with the thesis is that once the final version is submitted, then there will be two teachers assessing your thesis. So one will be your supervisor and the second will be someone else. We don't know who that will be. And they make their assessment, they make their suggestion, and the final thesis, together with all these suggestions, go to the thesis committee. And the thesis committee looks at every single thesis. They look at what the two teachers have suggested, and then they discuss about it. So this is a committee of 4 or 5 persons. They discuss about it, whether the suggested grade is okay or there should be some different consideration, and then they approve or give the final grade for the thesis. And the thesis committee meets at certain dates. So one of the things that you should consider in your planning is to check out what are those dates, and then to plan accordingly which is the thesis committee meeting date that you are targeting that your thesis will go to. And then you start planning backwards. So your final thesis, after all the checkings, should be returned 4 weeks before your target thesis committee meeting. So sometimes this is especially important when you have the study rights expiring. Unfortunately, it's a bit misleading when your study rights are expiring on 31st of July, right? So you think that, okay, I have time until the end of July to write my thesis. Well, that's not the, that gives a very wrong impression, because the last committee meeting in the spring is in the beginning of June. So in July, nobody is working here. Nobody will, gather to review your thesis. So you may think that I will submit my thesis on the 30th of July when my study rights are still, existing. That's not the case. So let's have a look. Let's check from the link that I share here about the dates. So here, this is our famous page, the master's thesis in the Elmo, student Elmo. And under that, number 6, submission and assessment, when we go there, all the instructions related to what you should be doing are presented here. Now, we have the thesis committee meetings for the academic year 2018-19. Next academic year's dates are not yet there. They will come at some point. As you see here, but you can imagine that they will be around similar dates. As you see here, the last thesis committee meeting this academic year will be on the 4th of June. And for your thesis to go there, you should submit the final version on the 7th of May. To have the final version there ready, that final version needs to go through your supervisor's check, Urkund plagiarism check, and language check. So that means all of these require time. So clicking the clock backwards, if May 7th is the day for submitting your final version, That means your draft version, which will go through these checks, should be ready by like mid-April. So at some point when your study rights will be expiring, if that happens to be 31st of July, well, the translation into practice is that your draft thesis should be ready by mid-April. Okay? Is this a surprise to you? Well, so let us see now in more detail what happens in these checkings. Now the supervisor's check, actually you can, relax yourself if you are interactive throughout the process with your supervisor. That means that as you move along, chapter by chapter, as we discussed before, share the chapters with your supervisor. So get feedback chapter by chapter from your supervisor, so that at the end, if there are problems, you can fix early. And at the end, there isn't so much that your supervisor needs to check. So my rule of thumb with my students is that I give feedback on a chapter only once. So I'm not going to, if I have given feedback on chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, 4, and then the whole thesis comes, but I haven't given feedback is the last chapter, so I'll just give feedback on the last chapter and the abstract. I'm assuming that the student will take care of my earlier feedbacks to fix the problems in the earlier chapters. So this also helps at the end, your supervisor will not need more time. And be sure that especially the year ends, the end of the academic year, so this last June meeting, and also the end of the calendar year, because for the bachelor students whose study period is 3.5 years, so most of the bachelor theses are coming to the December meeting. So if you are targeting the December or the June meetings, the very last, be sure that they are the most crowded. So that means your supervisor may be busy with many theses, in addition to all the existing activities. The language check will be very busy with many theses. So in that respect, it's good to give some extra time, and better would be that target some other committee meetings than the last one. Those will be the very busy ones with so many theses. And for language check, the suggestion is also similar. Don't wait to write the whole thesis to send it for language check. Okay? And then at the language department, and when we talk about the language department, here for the master's thesis, we are talking about Hannu Ruunanen. So he's the person who will be giving you the language-related feedback on your thesis. He will not be checking all the theses. What he will do is he will read some sample pages, give you some feedback on that, and he will suggest that you fix similar problems in the rest of the thesis. He will realize after 20 pages what kind of same mistakes you are doing. So he won't check the whole thesis, but give feedback on a sample. In that respect, my suggestion is that when you have already 20 or let's say 30 pages written, send that to Hannu for the feedback. So when you have your literature review and introduction chapters ready, that would make together about 30 pages. I suggest that you send that draft to Hannu for his feedback. That also helps you, because when you get the feedback and you realize what kinds of mistakes you are doing, hopefully you avoid those in the rest of the thesis. But then one thing is very important. At the very end, you should also send the description page, the abstract, to Hannu. So sample after 30 pages is ready, get feedback, and then when the whole thesis is ready, only the abstract, because that is the page, as we discussed, that will be read the most, I mean, by the thesis committee members. So that should be perfect. And for the case of Sari, you should send both the English and the Finnish abstracts to Han. Okay? So that also saves his time and your time. At the last moment, he only has the abstract to correct, so you don't need to wait very long for this from the language department. Usually this is the bottleneck. The language check is the bottleneck because they are not only checking your thesis, or our department's thesis. They are getting thesis from all the schools, so they are, they are really, really busy. I know from existing my students' thesis, whose thesis I'm supervising, that they send the thesis for feedback, for language check. After 3 weeks, they are contacting me. We still didn't hear from Han. That's very typical because he's so busy. So in that respect, you need to give time. You can't expect that, May the 7th is the final thesis submission date, and May the 1st, or let's say the 2nd, you send it to language check and you expect that you'll get it on May the 5th. Don't expect that. Okay? So give him time. And when I say time, I'm talking about weeks, not days. Couple of weeks. So there will be waiting. But of course, we clear the problem. If you have already submitted, 30 pages, then it doesn't matter if he returns it in 10 weeks, because after 10 weeks, after your literature review chapter, you still will not be ready with your thesis. And only at the last moment, he will only look at the abstract, so that shouldn't take a lot of time. Yes?
So for me, it's before October 15th.
If you are targeting the December meeting, so we can check out here when has been the last committee meeting in December. So in December, the last committee meeting has been last year on the 11th of December. So for that, the last day to submit the final thesis was 13th of November. In that respect, you should be ready by, I would say, 20th of October with the draft thesis, that the rest of the things can be ready. But if you have already had the language check, only the abstract, supervisor's check, and the plagiarism check, supervisor can also take a week, expect a week from your supervisor at least. And that plagiarism check is fast. The problem is there will be a time problem if there is a plagiarism problem. And we'll discuss about that also soon. So this was the language check. Now the plagiarism checking. Hopefully there won't be any problem if you've paid attention to our suggestions. Don't copy paste. This is your own intellectual product. So write it in your own words. Copy paste is allowed in limited cases. If you are going to write word by word a definition, you don't need to rewrite the definition. You can write it exactly as a copy paste. But then, of course, remember that you need to make the citation, including the page number. You can copy paste a figure if that is really what is adding value to your thesis. Like, for example, if you find as your theoretical framework very nice figure, you want to import that into your thesis, that's fine. All figures, all tables if they are not your own. And not your own doesn't mean that you have only copy-pasted it directly. It can also mean that you have created it by ideas from other persons. So I suggest that all figures and tables should have citations adapted from. Adapted means it's not copy-pasted, but you have made some changes. Adapted from means you have included ideas from earlier works of X, Y, Z. So that is important. And what will be the case when you get the green light from your supervisor, who will tell you that, okay, now you can send it to plagiarism checking. What you will do is you will send an email to the following email. So whoever is your supervisor, first name dot surname dot yamk at analysis.urkunt.com. So to this email, you send your thesis as an attachment, as a Word attachment. So I gave the example that if I happen to be your supervisor, then the email would be murat.akpinar.yomk at analysis.urkunt.com, for example. What happens? You don't hear anything. Your supervisor will hear the result. So the result of your plagiarism checking goes to your supervisor. So the rule of thumb that I favor is that if what comes to the supervisor is first a percentage, saying that okay, X% of the thesis is copy paste. And then also comes the document, the whole thesis, at which all the copy-paste material is highlighted together with the links where the original material is found. So it's not only the percentage that counts, but also what has been copy-pasted. So your supervisor will go through the analysis, the results, and may come back to you. So the rule of thumb is that if the copy-paste is up to 5%, so that may include, definitions, that may include, sometimes it takes some of the references as copy-paste. So there can be this kind of, we have this kind of a tolerance of 5%. So if it's up to 5%, that's considered okay. If it's between 5% and 20%, in that case, I and your supervisor, whoever, will probably contact you and send you the report, tell you that, look, this are copy-paste. Rewrite all of that. We have had unfortunate cases. And culture perhaps plays a role here. I see that we have now 3 students from India, 1 student from Bangladesh, 1 student from Bulgaria, 1 student from Finland. Unfortunately, we have had problems with students from India lately. How many times we tell? I don't know how the message is not going through. We have had really high percentages, copy-paste material. I mean, I tell it openly, don't copy-paste, don't do it. But some do it. So, unfortunately, last semester, 1 student's thesis was canceled. It was not accepted. So if it is above 20%, you are in trouble. If Urkunt says, okay, 26% is copy-paste, we will not even ask you to rewrite. We will say stop. You will write a completely new thesis. Nothing from this thesis. All your efforts will go for waste.
Like new topic.
New topic, completely new topic. Game is over. If it happens that you get 26%, the rule is clear, game over, there will be an appeal to the rector, it won't be a court process, but there will be an official process, which, stops the thesis process, and if you are lucky, I think we have had some understanding for the Indian student who had this unfortunate situation because of, different culture and not understanding what was expected maybe clearly. So we had some understanding. But our ethical guides tell us that we don't need to even give the second chance. So the second chance was granted that the student writes a new thesis, taking into consideration this, cultural maybe misunderstandings, but that may not be the case for everyone. So we tell it over and over that you don't happen to get into this kind of situation, which is unfortunate for everyone, including your supervisor. We don't like to be bad guys in that kind of situation. It's sad and bad for all of us who are involved in this kind of a situation. So my suggestion is that write everything in your own words. Avoid copy paste as much as possible. If it happens to be that the copy paste is between 5 and 20%, then you will be asked, you will be provided the report which shows, okay, this is copy paste from this. Even if you share the citation, it's not enough. It's not that you just, okay, I have made the citation there, can't I copy paste? No, you can't copy paste. This is your own intellectual product. You need to write it in your own words. Copy paste is allowed in some exceptional cases, as I mentioned, definitions, some legal text, some important saying of some important person, or some figure that you really want to import directly. Those are allowed, but that should not exceed a certain amount. You will be asked to rewrite all those parts which are highlighted by Urkund when the percentage is between 5 and 20%. Well, let's say that everything is okay. You got the feedback from your supervisor, from the language check, from Urkund. There are maybe some suggestions from the language center, from your supervisor. So you fix those things, and now you have the final thesis ready. Let's submit. So you will be following the instructions that are presented at the submission page in Elmo. Couple of things, I won't go through those instructions. Couple of things you need to remember when you are at that stage. One, you need to make the maturity exam. Okay? There are instructions about the maturity exam on the page. So let me once again go back to this famous page. So here, instructions about returning the thesis.
One question on the copy paste related item. If you want to share certain results based upon the literature review that so and so person has done research and he found that out of this much percentage he has done like some numbers specifically. So is that thing considered as a copy paste? Because the numbers and the text will be like exactly the same.
The text should not be exactly the same. Now you are just telling if let's say what you told me is what you are writing.
Yeah.
Person X has done an earlier research on the same topic and found out that these are your own words. You are not writing exactly. Don't write and has found out that, write it in your own words what that person has found out. Of course you use has found out that, let's say, customer satisfaction has an important role on this,
Loyal, right.
for example. Well, that's fine. I mean, these are all your own words. If you want to share there has a, let's say, 20% or some number, you know, that won't be copy-paste. So, you know, just having one number, I think that any number on your table is definitely somewhere in the world in some text, you know. So that will not be, but if Urkund, you know, sees the whole sentence, which is the same, including the number,
Yeah.
you know, then that's a copy-paste. So write it in your own words what that person has found out. Don't say has found out and then you find one paragraph there, you write the whole paragraph. Don't do that. So here we have the maturity test. So the maturity test you write at home, but then you will be presenting it at one of our seminars. So you write a one-page bulletin. You have the Word template and the instructions. It's like an executive summary of your thesis. You write that, and that should be also submitted together with your thesis to the return box in Optima. I will show you where you need to submit. You already have practice with that, right? You, you know the place. Great. So maturity exam, you write it in Word, but also you make a presentation about it. The presentation will take place about 20 minutes. So 20 minutes, you present basically your thesis, what were the objectives, what research questions you had, what was your theoretical framework, what methodology you applied, and most importantly, what results you found. So that's going to be the content of your presentation, and we will have perhaps about 10 minutes questions and answers discussion session. So that is the maturity test. Now, you know the target date when you will be, which committee meeting you will be forwarding your thesis. So let's say if it's the 5th of March committee meeting, then in time means before the return time, before the 5th of February, you should fill in this survey. There's an Excel survey here. If we click on the survey, so this is for us to know who is returning thesis to which committee meeting. So when you know the committee meeting, where you will return the thesis, just before, 1 week before the return date, make sure that you also fill in this Excel survey. Okay, so this is one of the steps that you should be taking care of. Okay, so maturity exam done, Excel survey filled. So what are you going to return? Where are you going to return? So thesis will be returned. The Word document, not the presentation of the maturity exam, will be returned. Then we need 3 assessments from you, 2 or 3. 1, self-assessment. So you are asked to assess your own thesis. That's called self-assessment. Second assessment is peer assessment. So when you are going to return your thesis, make sure that you find a peer student. Okay? So Ted will be the peer student for Sari. Okay? So the peer student should also read Sari's thesis and make an assessment of that thesis. So the peer assessment, self-assessment should also be uploaded by Sari to the return box. So thesis, maturity exam, self-assessment, peer assessment. So 4 documents at least. And finally, if you are doing the thesis for a company, if your assigner on the description page is a company, right? So Sridhar, you will be assigned by your company. You are assigned by your company, right? Who is the assigner of your thesis?
Not compare, but my, let's say, I mean, it will be helpful for the company, but I didn't like take any permission from the company.
So now let's say so. Every thesis should have an assigner.
Assign.
So if we look at the, if we go to the thesis, let's have a look at. So here we have the thesis template. So let's open the thesis template. So here on the second page, description page, it's asking assigned by. This will not be empty. So if you don't have an assigner, then you should write here YAMC Center for Competitiveness. Okay? So if Tariq is doing his thesis about the textile industry in Bangladesh, there is no assigner company, he will write here YAMC Center for Competitiveness. If that is the case, then you do not need the third assessment. But if your assigner is, let's say in Sridhar's case, Quantel, then we need also an assessment from a representative of the company. Okay? So that if you are doing it for your own company, then we don't need any assessment. Yeah. So your self-assessment will be equal to the company assessment.
Right there, like the company.
You decide which one is more suitable.
Yeah, I mentioned that host company as Quantal and representative of the host company as one of the person from Quantal. So he has to do that.
Yes. So all the assessments, how they will be made? They will be made using our assessment form and our assessment criteria. We are not asking anybody to create something from all minds. So let us get to so where do you find those? Let's get back to the master's thesis. Assessment. So here, as you read through the instructions, you will be using our evaluation criteria. The Bible you are already familiar with. And you will be using also the assessment form. So it takes you to the forms. And here you have our assessment criteria for YAMK. And you will be also using here the thesis assessment, self-assessment form. So in that form, what you will do into the relevant places, you just look at the criteria. There is the grade for every part. You should take every single part in the assessment criteria and choose, okay, is my thesis here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Just copy paste the text that is writing there. So let's have a look. So let's open this thesis self-assessment. So here is so you put your information, contact information, and then starts the choice of the topic. So under choice of the topic, you remember our criteria. There are 3 sub-criteria. So look at every sub-criteria. The first one, you find that, okay, my thesis is the one that corresponds to level 3. So what is the text in level 3? Just copy paste that text into here. Then next, look at the second sub-criteria under choice of topic. Okay, here my thesis corresponds to level 4. Copy paste the text under level 4 here. Okay, don't write choice of the topic. Oh, my topic was a great, topic. We are not expecting any old words here. So this is we will not send these to Urkut. So feel free to use what is in the criteria. Okay, is this clear? So don't invent anything. I don't want to read anything here that's your own text. Just copy paste straight from the criteria. So we have these 3, 4, 5 areas, just like in our evaluation criteria. Okay? This is going to be a helpful exercise also for the peer students to understand how to assess. It is also part of the learning process. That's why we have this peer student exercise. Okay. And where do we return these? So we have all these assessments ready. Where do we return these? Well, in Optima, and you go to Optima, every one of you should be seeing this folder or workspace called Like Opinioute Palautus Thesis Submission. Okay, you see that in your Optima? You don't? I think you haven't seen. Good. Yes. So you will see it only if you make the Excel survey. I think you will make the Excel survey. When you make it, probably, I haven't heard any student so far, you should be seeing. How did you return here?
I see a lot of things.
Let me reveal shall I reveal the secret?
No.
Okay. So you should check that, are you seeing this workspace? You should be seeing this. Because somebody here, I don't tell the name, returned the thesis proposal here. I didn't say the name, right? Do you see it? Sorry, you don't see it? You can check it.
I can check it.
Yeah, I can see it.
You can see it?
Yes.
Yeah, so everyone should be able to see it. Except Sari. Yes, I think everyone can see it. Well, check it. So Sridhar is able to see it. If Sridhar is able...
It should be there, right, the front page on the workspace.
Yes.
Yeah, it should be. You see it, Ted? Still?
Almost there.
You see it, Tarek?
Like,
You don't see it, Tarek? Oh my God. Some see it, some don't see it. So if you don't see it, you are not allowed to return the thesis. Game over.
Go home now. I got it.
You don't see it? You can see it, Ted?
Sign off there.
Ted, you can see it, right? How about you? You don't see? Oh my God. So maybe you need to mature. You are not mature enough yet. They are older students, you know. So maybe next year you will see it. Who knows? Okay. Hopefully someday you will see it. So here, the choice for you is master's degrees. You click on the master's degrees, and there, under the master's degrees, there is coming those thesis committee meeting dates. And let's say now we are talking about the last one, or let's look at the 7th of May meeting. This is already closed. Here you will see the master's thesis return box. And when I click on it, I will see who has returned. So you are supposed to return your thesis to the return box under the relevant thesis committee meeting date. You are not mature yet. You need to wait. Well, let's check that, you know, let's have, yeah, I will check that with Saya, you know, well, that's, or our, or the persons who are here, you know, maybe they haven't added certain groups yet, thinking that, okay, they may not be returned, it may be too early for them. So I'll check it with these ladies over here, why some students see, some students don't see. That's an interesting situation. I can only imagine that you are, you know, just in your first year still, that you are not expected to deliver your thesis. So that may be the reason, but I'll check about this. So you find the thesis committee meeting folder that you think you will be returning, and then under that, you'll find the master thesis return box, and there you will be returning, you'll be returning your 4 documents, at least, or 5. Thesis, maturity exam, self-assessment, peer assessment, those must be there, and if applicable, also company assessment. So representative of the employer, probably your manager, will be the 5th assessment, 5th document. All good. Now, one last thing is about confidentiality. In some of the theses, especially if assigned by the company, there may be some worries about to what extent some of the information they would like to reveal or not reveal. Okay? So we have had some these kinds of cases. If that happens to be in your situation, there are a number of ways to handle it. The best way, the easiest way, hopefully that also suits the employer, is that you don't mention the name of the employer. So in the thesis, you only call it case company. Okay? And the information that you provide in the thesis about the company should not reveal, you know, if somebody reads it, even though it says case company, you know, we should not understand the company. So you shouldn't reveal any information that will immediately tell the reader, okay, this is that company. Does that satisfy the employer, that there is no mention of the name of the company? You don't mention, if you interview some people, you say you interviewed managers in case company, you don't provide names or titles. Is that enough? for the employer? Hopefully. If not, well, then which parts of the thesis the employer does not want to share? It won't be the whole thesis. If you think about the literature review, the methodology chapters, those chapters, I don't think that anybody is against that you publish those chapters. They are not about the company. Most probably, maybe in the results chapter, there may be some things that they may think are confidential and should not be shared with the public. So if that happens to be the case, then what you do in the version that will be published, so there will be two versions. The version that will be evaluated, so that will be the full thesis. The version that will be published, those confidential parts, you remove them to the appendices. Okay? So you make an appendix, confidential parts, so those parts will not be published. The rest of the thesis will be published. So this is option 2. And option 3, if the company is super sensitive and they say, no, you cannot publish this, then you don't give permission for the publication of your thesis. On the description page, there is a place where you should cross whether you give permission or not to the publication of your thesis. And if you don't give permission, well, then it will not be published. But, what is the use of doing such a thesis? That will not be published. So don't expect to get, the highest of the grades if that happens to be the case, that you are doing such a secret job, secret thesis that will not be published. I mean, at least the literature review, methodology, introduction, I don't see any reasons why they shouldn't be published. So out of the 3 options, with the order, I would go for the first one. Case company, don't reveal any information about the company, but write the whole thesis. And don't reveal in the results chapter any strategic, confidential things. Write in some round words that will not reveal anything about the company. Option 2, if there are some confidential, pages, couple of pages, to the appendix. Last option, hopefully not, you don't publish anything. But that will unfortunately not be the best of the options. We talked about the assessment, so you submitted everything. You may still hear from your supervisor. If there are some serious issues that, should be fixed. Like, for example, sometimes students make mistakes on the cover page, the title page. We usually write School of Business. So at the end of the title page here, let's get back to it. So thesis front page. On the front page, on the cover page, so the format is ready for you. You just change, this should be the same 26 font. You just write the title, author's first name, family name. You just change these with your name. And then coming down, you put here master's thesis, month, year, and then, so this is the month, year of the submission. Now this is the confusing part. Name of field, technology, communication, transport. This a bit confuses the students. For us, right here, always School of Business. Okay? Don't write anything else. And then here, I think you have different, you belong to different masters. The names of your programs are different. So Ted, I think yours is different.
Yeah.
Yours is master's degree program in entrepreneurship and business competence, if I remember correctly. Yours is also. No, you wrote that for sending your proposal, right?
I think that's what he told me. That's the revised one, international business management.
For the because that we did so that your proposal comes to me.
Okay.
You know, you are actually belonging to, if you look at your ASIO, if you go to your transcript, let's see what is the name. Everybody, let's go to your transcript and check. Yes. You see it? Do you see the name of the program?
I just see School of Business.
In your transcript?
It's in the transcript, it says on the
School of Business.
What is your group code? Tell me your group code.
Mine is YBB.
Yes. So if your group code is YBB, also YBB, you are in International Business Management. So YBB equals International Business Management. Are you YHL? I thought so. You are different, huh?
always. Which means
It's good.
I made a t-shirt, be different, you know? One of my first design. I'm not sure how good is it.
So YHL means entrepreneurship and business competence. YBB, International Business Management, YHL, Entrepreneurship and Business Competence. So here, name of degree program will be different for some of you. Most of you, International Business Management, but some of you will be, or not some of you, only one of you will be entrepreneurship, degree program in entrepreneurship and business competence. Okay, so if we get some, if there are some obvious mistakes, let's say somebody doesn't have the assigner, you will be definitely contacted before the thesis committee meeting to make a revision, to correct these things. We won't contact you if your list of references is horrible. If you haven't followed the reporting instructions, we won't contact you. We will just give the suitable grade to you. Probably that will be 0 from that part. But we will contact you if you have figures and you have not put citations to the figures. You will be surely contacted. Sometimes it happens that during the checking it's not noticed. It goes unnoticed. But we will surely contact you. We don't want to have any headaches later on related to plagiarism. Now, the thesis committee gave your grade. Very good. You are almost there, but you are not there yet. I got my grade from the thesis committee. What am I still supposed to do? Well, you are supposed to do some things. One, you need to archive and publish your thesis. So we have instructions about that. Let's get back there. If we go here, master's thesis. So the last stage after the submission and assessment, stage number 7, it's about archiving and publishing. So once you have, usually the thesis committee, the same day or the day after, they will publish your grade, and you will see it in ASIO in your transcript. So you will then you are expected to, if you are fine with it. Now there can be different kinds of situations. There can be a situation that you will also get the reviews, assessments from your supervisor and the second person. So they jointly make one assessment, which is a suggestion for the committee. So you may get the grade from the thesis committee. You may also see the suggestions, and if you are surprised, let's say you were expecting a 4, and you also check your supervisors and second readers assessment, they say, oh, this is a 4, and all of a sudden in ASIO you see the grade of 2. Okay, you are surprised. So if that is the case, contact your supervisor, what's happened, what happened. And then probably you may also contact me, and I may be the one who may have more insights about your thesis, what happened at the committee meeting. So get some information, why is different from what is expected, why was it that the supervisor and the second reader thought that it's a 4, but all of a sudden you got 2. If you are not satisfied, you can make an objection to your assessment. Making the objection, the first time, it goes back to the same committee. So the same committee will make a review of your objection. Sometimes, if they are not satisfied with the supervisor and second reader's assessment, they may also send your thesis to a third reader. That's also possible. If there is some conflict, if there is some disagreement about the grade, they may have a third opinion. So you make an objection, they will reassess it, and then you will again see reassessment, however, goes to the next committee meeting. They will not organize a separate committee meeting to reassess your, so that means you will wait another month. And then you will see the reassessment, and you look the grade, it's still 2. Okay, what do I do? So you can make a second appeal, and that second appeal goes not to this committee, but to the, we have some kind of an audit committee, a higher committee. So that may go also there. This kind of situation has not happened many times, very rare. Usually, everything goes smoothly, but sometimes not. Very rarely not. So you can make a second appeal, which goes to a higher committee, and they will decide, and that decision will be final. So there will not be, you cannot appeal to the European Court of Justice. Okay? So that's the end. So 2 times you can make an appeal, and then you get the grade. But let us hope that that's not the case. And sometimes you can also be surprised that the committee awards a higher grade than what is suggested by the supervisors. That has also happened. Lucky guys, sometimes we see. So you archived your thesis, you published your thesis. Okay, what else should I do? Is it over? No. We don't leave you so fast. Now, how is the situation with your transcript? One of the things, remember, that you should be doing with your tutor is the portfolio. If you think about the professional development course, where you did the personal learning plan, where it was agreed that you are going to develop your target competences. So have you developed those target competences? So 2 credits, 2 ECTS, portfolio from professional development may be still missing. So don't wait until you get your thesis. For this thing, be in contact earlier with your career tutor. Is it me or is it Shab in your case? To check that in your transcript everything is okay, that you are not still missing any credits. And our ASIO is unfortunately a bit, out of its mind. So you enroll some courses under some module and it puts it to a different module. So that is also one of the things that needs to be fixed before you graduate. So ask your career tutor. I said here, I put there my name. I think I am the career tutor for most of you. So go through your transcript that everything is in the right place and that you have all the credits fulfilled. That will allow you to graduate. Great. Last thing, this last thing, so far, we had trouble only with one student who was not from Finland, and she left already the country, and she finished the thesis. All the credits are there. The thesis is there. Remember, you don't get the diploma automatically in Finland. You need to apply for it. And that happens through an electronic submission, an electronic form. Remember the place, the forms where you made your electronic proposal? Under the forms, there is also a form for so here, let me show it to you. So in your opening page, you have this electronic services. Let's check that we find it. And here you have the forms. So I have different forms than you have. So it doesn't make sense that I open it. So when you click on the forms, there you should be seeing let's see who will find it first. End of studies. You found it? Ted, you're on the right track. End of studies. Don't apply. In Finnish. Oh my God. Did Sridhar find it?
End of study. Yes.
You found it?
Yeah.
So make sure that when everything is okay, you have your credits checked, you have your thesis grade there, everything is ready. Apply for your diploma using this form. We had the student, who didn't apply and the study rights expired. Oh my God. It was last year, 31st of July. She hasn't applied. We are not going to come and check you that have you applied. We are not going to do that. It's your responsibility. We tell it. But then this student, everything was ready. All the courses finished, thesis done in the last June committee meeting, everything ready, but she has not applied until 31st of July for her diploma. You know what happened? We didn't send anything to her in August, She needed to reapply to get study rights because her study rights were finished. And she finished her study rights without getting the diploma, even though everything else was finished. She needed to reapply to get permission to be considered for study rights. And that needed to be applied in the autumn semester. So it was only in December that she could get the rights to study again. That started 1st of January this year. So 6 months, no diploma. You know, bureaucracy. You wait. And then 1st of January, okay, she got the rights. But then, of course, she still, I think, hasn't understood that she thought she needed to pay to get the rights. I think she paid some 50 euros to get these new rights. And then in January, I was checking time to time, was it in March? I realized that she hasn't yet still applied. Oh my God. So she thought that paying the money and applying for the extension was enough, that they would send the diploma. So the student services contacted her again. By the way, she's not here in Finland. Contacted her again by email, you know, apply. And she was responding like, what should I again apply? Apply for your diploma. So step by step, you know, she was instructed what to do, and finally she applied. And you can imagine that we opened a bottle of champagne, you know.
She left the country.
Sorry?
She left the country. Finland.
Yeah, she was out of Finland already long time ago. I'm not sure if she was even checking her emails. You know. So we have this kind of experiences. That's why, you know, I repeat, this is not something common maybe to many of you. This is something maybe common to Finland, but not other countries, that you need to apply for your own diploma, even though everything else is finished. So, I think
The bachelor was different, right? Because I don't think we applied for that.
you should apply also the bachelor.
Was it?
Yes, yes. Maybe your mother applied for you.
I don't think so. But I got the diploma.
So, well, I think you can now, you have made the application, I think you can get your diplomas. We can graduate you now. Let's have our 15 minutes break, and let's be back at 10:30. Ted, sorry, you already have received your 3 ECTS. We'll be doing the workshop, so you don't need to be here. If you have already presented your research plan, submitted your research plan, and also received your supervisor and your 3 ECTS, you don't need to be in the next session.
But that was very informative.
You mean the